December 1948, Somerton Beach, Adelaide. A well-dressed man sat dead against a seawall with a cigarette on his collar. No identification in his pockets, and a scrap of printed words that seemed too small to matter. It kept mattering. I started with the body. He was about 40, maybe a little older, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, dressed in a jacket, shirt, tie, trousers, socks, and polished shoes. The sand nearby held no sign of a fight. The sea smelled flat and cold. A couple saw him the evening before. He sat propped against the wall, one arm shifting once, maybe lifting, maybe falling. They took him for a drunk sleeping off the day. In that dim light, the shape of death looked ordinary. Another passerby found him in the same place, head resting back, legs stretched, one foot crossed over the other. His face carried the calm look that bothers cops most. It suggested the last minute arrived quietly. The police checked his pockets and came up light. No wallet, no papers, no hat, though men dressed like that usually wore one. Everything that could speak for him had been cut out, torn away, or never placed there. Adelaide in the late 40s had edges made for a case like this. Post-war movement, new arrivals, boarding houses, rail traffic, harbor work. Men could drift in with borrowed names and leave none behind. Records existed, but gaps sat between them like broken teeth. The city also lived inside early Cold War nerves. Intelligence services watched ports, factories, and aerodromes. People noticed strangers, but only after something happened. A quiet man in a pressed coat vanished into tram noise and tobacco smoke. Then there was the old habit of privacy. Boarding house owners forgot faces. Hotel clerks missed details. Witnesses patched memory after the fact. By the time investigators circled back, kettle steam and street dust had already settled over the useful parts. At the morgue, the pathologist worked under hard light and found a body in good condition. Muscles showed unusual calf development. Toes narrowed in a way some linked to dancing or certain footwear. No obvious external injury explained the death. His stomach held a pasty, partly digested meal. The spleen was enlarged. Congestion marked several organs. The doctor suspected poison, then hit the same wall that still stands in old files, leaving only suggestion and doubt. The man's clothing offered its own riddle. Every label had been removed from jacket, trousers,
and tie. Thread ends remained where names once sat. One hidden marking survived on a tie and another garment.
Small clues, nothing strong enough for court. Investigators traced those surviving marks to possible laundry references and chased them through shops and records. The trail thinned out. It always did. The city had the stale paper smell of procedure while the dead man remained 1 inch beyond identification. Weeks later, police found a brown suitcase left at Adelaide railway station. It was believed to belong to the dead man. Inside sat clothing, slippers, tools, a stencil brush, scissors altered to cut clean, and thread matching repairs on his trousers. The suitcase deepened the trouble. More labels had been stripped. Some garments carried the name T. Keen or Keen, but no confirmed missing man matched the body. Detectives checked shipping lists, military records, and interstate leads. They came back tired. The official line formed slowly and never quite hardened. An unidentified man had died on Somerton Beach, likely from poison, sometime during the night of November 30th into December 1st, 1948. No assailant could be proved, no name could be attached. The inquest heard the medical evidence and the witness timeline. It accepted that death looked unnatural, or at least unexplained. Yet without a detectable toxin, without a confession, and without a known history, the ruling stayed suspended in formal uncertainty. Police preserved the body, took a plaster death mask, and buried him as an unknown man. The grave gave the public a place to stare at the problem, but not to solve it. Officialdom filed the case under unresolved identification and suspicious death. The record said essentially the same thing in cleaner language. Unidentified male, no conclusive cause, circumstances unusual, inquiry incomplete. That kind of wording had a dry sound in the file room. It covered the smell of failure well enough. Then the scrap turned up. Tucked in a fob pocket in the man's trousers was a tiny rolled piece of paper printed with the words Tamam Shud, torn from the final page of a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Finished. Ended. That scrap led police to a book found in a car near Glenelg. The back page had been torn. The torn edge reportedly matched the paper from the dead man's pocket. Investigators found indented letters and a telephone number. The letters looked like a code. 5 lines, capitals grouped unevenly, 1 line crossed out. Experts from Navy intelligence and code sections looked at it and got nowhere solid. Cipher, mnemonic, or nonsense. Every possibility remained standing after the smoke cleared. The phone number belonged to a young nurse who had lived near Somerton Beach. In records, she became known by aliases, mostly to protect her family. She denied knowing the dead man by identity. Witnesses said her reaction to his plaster bust shook the room. There were other rough edges. Some early reports mentioned the man's pupils, possible signs of poison, and a strangely fit body for a middle-aged office type. Other details shifted across newspapers and statements. Rumor puts on their coat. The nurse had once given a copy of the Rubaiyat to an army lieutenant named Alfred Boxall during the war. Boxall was later found alive, carrying his book with the Tamam Shud page still intact. That lead broke cleanly, then left fragments everywhere. One theory put the dead man in the tradecraft world. Stripped labels, code in a book, a possible poison hard to detect, a coastal city with military links. The shape fit the times. The evidence never rose above shape. Files love shakes. Another theory stayed close to the nurse. Maybe the man knew her. Maybe he came to see her and met rejection, panic, or a private arrangement gone wrong. Some pointed to her child, to facial similarities, to quiet evasions she carried for years. Others argued for a plain ending. Suicide by rare poison, a man with reasons of his own, seated on a public beach after dark, carrying a phrase that meant completion. It explained the posture. It explained very little else, especially the careful erasures. Long after the first headlines yellowed, the Somerton Man kept pulling experts back in. Exhumation was discussed for years and finally happened in 2021. Soil and grave damp had done their work. But science had become more patient than the old detectives. In 2022, researchers using genetic genealogy proposed an identification. They named him as Carl or Charles Webb, an electrical engineer born in Melbourne. The finding drew wide attention. It answered one door on the file. Several others stayed locked, even with a likely name. Key pieces still rattled loose. No court proved how he died. No document settled why labels were removed. No public record closed the gap between Webb's known life and the seawall at Somerton on that summer edge. I kept coming back to the beach. Salt air, pale sand, a body arranged almost politely against stone. A phrase meaning finished in a hidden pocket. A likely name found 70 years late. So tell me, which detail doesn't sit right with you?